Welcome everyone. Sue Moran, Chair of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen, and I want to welcome you especially to the State of the Town. I was just going to introduce Julian Suso, the Town Manager, today, and we just had a minute to speak before the show, and I said that I've had most everyone here on this State of the Town show just to kind of give the folks at home watching this a different viewpoint, more of a conversational view of what every particular person who's involved with the board really get their specific take on certain issues. One thing I want to start Mr. Suso off with, he's been our town manager for quite a few years. I do a lot of work with the county. I'm the Assembly of Delegates member for Falmouth, and I consistently hear kind of a little envy about how Falmouth is really able to take care of its bottom line and really be very conservative with finances and expenditures, and to fit the big projects in at those moments of opportunity so that the tax rate, the mill rate for property taxes doesn't go up. And there's only one way to do that, and that's by having a very good manager at the helm. So Mr. Suso, welcome, and how do you do it?
Well, it's great to be here, Sue. Thank you for the opportunity to sit and have a conversation with you. Thank you for your kind words. I think what you're referring to in significant part is the property tax rate that we enjoy in the town of Falmouth. And in the past year, we were at $8.53 per thousand, which is, for those not as cognizant of how rates reflect, that's a rate that's considerably less than most other communities on the Cape, and certainly the lion's share of communities in the Commonwealth. We are considerably lower than some of our companion communities of Sandwich and Mashpee and Barnstable, and moving across the Cape. I should also mention Bourne. Moving across the Cape, also Plymouth and Wareham and others.
You don't happen to know off the top of your head any of those numbers for comparison?
Actually, I do know the numbers. I'll have to refer to my sheet of paper here, but I'm happy to do that if I may. For instance, as I noted, we're at $8.53 per thousand, and by contrast, Mashpee is at $9.08, Barnstable $9.54, Yarmouth is at $10.02, Wareham $11.25, Fall River $14, Sandwich $14.93, and Hanover $16.52. Plymouth is way up at $16.58. So we're about half of that property tax rate per thousand, for instance, compared to Plymouth. And one of the great things about it is that with the leadership of the Board of Selectmen and the support of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and Town Meeting, we remain what I call a full-service municipality, meaning that we provide really the full range of services that any traditional municipality would, and some beyond that. We have everything but municipal electric service here. As you know, Sue, we still make house calls in terms of curbside refuse pickup and recycling for all residential units, single-family, detached, etc.
On the Cape, how many other towns do trash pickup?
The only other one on the Cape that does that is Bourne. So it's Bourne and Falmouth. We alone do curbside trash pickup on the Cape, and there are very few in the Commonwealth in general that do it, and I know that from the last town where I was privileged to be town manager as well.
Well, I mentioned those windows of opportunity and the ability to keep that low mill rate that really keeps the constituents' wallets, from being tagged by the town too often. We recently did a couple of projects during the window of opportunity, a couple of big ones, and they came in under budget and on time. How was that achieved?
Well, we're very pleased, first of all, to have the two projects to which you're referring, of course, the water filtration facility and the package of wastewater improvements. We went to voters about 2.5 years ago now for a major debt exclusion to allow us to implement those two really huge infrastructure projects, fairly unprecedented. We had a package of nearly $100 million, those two combined, in wastewater and water infrastructure, that very unusual in the Commonwealth. and to have them both overwhelmingly approved was a wonderful vote of confidence, which we appreciate from the voters here in Falmouth. We had very close cooperation and collaboration on staff work, overseeing those projects. Ray Jack, our Public Works Director, worked tirelessly in achieving and in implementing and overseeing that process for both water and wastewater. On the water side specifically, Steve Rafferty, our water superintendent, has been a key player. And on the wastewater side, Amy Lowell, our wastewater superintendent, played a similar role in that regard. And water filtration facility, as you know, was just recently cut over and has been operating flawlessly. And we are really delighted to have what amounts to a state-of-the-art facility in the entire Commonwealth for filtered and pure water now in the town of Falmouth, and so well deserved. The selectmen, as you know, Sue, determined that we were going to go with the highest functioning facility that we could go forward with. And so this is truly state-of-the-art, and it involves filtration of all the Long Pond water. And Long Pond is more than 50% of all of our water capacity in the town. So we do have a couple of well fields as well, and they are fully treated and filtered, but Long Pond until now has not been. And that is now a thing of the past, and our water coming out of the tap is second to none, and we're really delighted. And also delighted that the hands-on kind of management that we had of the construction there, as you've noted, brought it in on time and under budget. So we anticipate in the early in the coming calendar year to have some type of a formal open house and give residents the opportunity to do a walkthrough if they'd care to, because it is truly a remarkable facility and one which we're rightly proud in the town of Falmouth. Stepping over to the wastewater side now, as you know.
Just before you
yes,
leave that,
please.
because one of the things was that it was truly a mesh of talent between the staff and the Water Quality Committee getting that special legislation to keep the price down. And they presented to the Board of Selectmen last evening about further projects that were going to benefit from that template. And so in terms of the filtration plant, one of the things I know that made it a challenge is that Falmouth is unique in that it has so much of its water from an open body, pond. Correct. Essentially. And so there were those challenges, and before we get to the sewer aspect, which was also a successful project, if you would touch for a minute on how it dovetails with the clean water, the really terrific water passing through older pipelines, and some issues where particularly I think in East Falmouth and in other areas where the new water is coming out still a little bit brown, or there's some still challenges, because I know that part of the plan was to address the delivery, and I think that's just about to start.
Correct. Yeah, it's a good adjunct. Thank you. We have very dated water main infrastructure in many parts of the community because Falmouth has traditionally had a significant water system, and we were an early community in doing that in terms of reflecting the needs of the residents. We have targeted the oldest water distribution line in the town, which is vintage about 1898. It's the Main Street water transmission main, and now that we have upgraded the facility in terms of filtration and sourcing, it is time to move forward on the transmission system, as you've noted, and that will be our first step. And we are well into the planning and design process for that replacement water transmission main along Main Street and into T-Ticket. We have a consulting engineer who is heavily involved in that moving forward. That will also, by the way, involve reconstruction of the roadway because that water transmission main lies underneath Main Street, which was the common approach many, many years ago, and one that is still embraced in communities like Falmouth, where we have narrower streets and road rights-of-way that are a little more modest in terms of efficiently utilizing our land resource.
What's our timing? What's the target time as best you know right now? Because of course that's going to bring some traffic concerns, and I know Amy Lowell, when we talk about the sewer project, really was right on top of it, giving advance notice to neighborhoods, putting it on the town website. Is that something we're going to need to use again?
Yes, we'll certainly be replicating that same model as we move forward with the necessary construction and reconstruction of that water transmission main. Ultimately, we'll be reconstructing the roadway. It's really about a 3 to 5 year process. We're well into the planning of it, as I've noted. The construction, we may see elements of that begin as early as a year hence. Again, there's some procurement issues that have to unfold before we can be certain of the timetable. But it will inevitably involve some traffic disruptions, some workarounds. I believe.
But we're going to get a respite for a year.
Correct, for a year anyway, Sue. Thankfully, as you've demonstrated, even though it has been an aggravation in terms of what occurred on the wastewater and doing that infrastructure work, we hope that people agree that the irritations are worth it in terms of the final product and what it's really delivered to our neighborhoods. And we think the same will be the case on Main Street, but we will have to ask for folks' patience with our announcements as they come forward on segmental disruptions to portions of Main Street for the reconstruction and the workaround. And as we have in the past, we'll make every reasonable effort to avoid the most difficult, challenging traffic times. But we try and balance that with keeping the costs down as well, which is a benefit to taxpayers. An example would be the wastewater, the Little Pond wastewater project. We could have stretched that out much longer over a couple of additional years at a higher cost to the benefit of taxpayers, but we chose to instead have a little bit of aggravation for a shorter period of time and come in at a lower cost because we don't have to have construction management over 5 years. Instead, it's shrunk down to 2 to 3. And that's what we anticipate for the Main Street as well. But it's always about a balance. And we will be having plenty of outreach to the public, plenty of announcements, suggestions when we need to avoid certain segments of the roadways, and particularly on Main Street. We're sensitive to that with our business community there as well. So certain months of the year, we certainly will avoid disruptions.
Well, and just to kind of go off topic a little bit, when you talk about Main Street, I mean, it's so important. Over the last 15 years, Main Street is now open for business pretty much all season and very, very successful. And one of the things that happened this year was the selectmen approved the, sorry, just a little bit tickle in my throat, the open Main Street in terms of the Christmas season, and really having parking, elsewhere, so that the street could be completely open to pedestrian revelers. Mm-hmm. And that was just highly, highly successful. Right. So, what do you see more of those opportunities coming up?
Well, I know that the concept of closures of Main Street present blessings and curses at the same time. In terms of doing it on a limited basis, there's great benefit, I think, to the shopping public and the revelers, as you've noted. And a good example was our stroll downtown and the downtown holiday lighting extravaganza that we have every year is a wonderful tradition. The closure of a segment of Main Street downtown during that really just created a much safer, as you know, sense for families. Mom and dad are not quite as concerned about the little ones because there's not going to be traffic in the street. And by the way, we had extraordinary cooperation from Public Works in parking large vehicles that blocked off full access to the street. So just as an adjunct to people when working with police and Public Works, Chief Dunn, to his credit, is taking the additional step of closing the streets fully, not just placing a police officer to allow certain portions of traffic to come through at certain times. It's a full closure so that when that does occur, we can be certain that there is no parking on street for that period of time for that occasion, and nobody needs to be concerned if someone should stray into the street about an automobile being there.
So well
So,
orchestrated. And
yeah.
in fact, Chief Dunn was really a great proponent of the idea that initially came from the Chamber of Commerce. So,
Right.
you know, I'm so pleased that the Chamber of Commerce and the town are really, you know, partnering with so many projects. One of the things I think would be a nice segue, and you look at all the initiatives in Falmouth with housing, is that, you know, we look at the building trades, and we lean it a little bit more towards Falmouth, open for business. The EDIC, I'm vice chair of that committee for economic development in Falmouth, and we had Ron Bonvie from Southport talk about, you know, how he thought Falmouth might be a great place to do business because it's such a vibrant community that he does a lot of over 55 or 60, I can't remember exactly the age, but folks that want to really get rid of the burden of their larger homes and move into smaller places that, you know, have a lot of amenities. And that in turn leaves our bigger homes for new families to come into. So it does make sense in terms of economic development, but a lot of this depends on the foundational nuts and bolts of Town Hall, where I know that we're looking at trying to shorten and make more efficient certain permitting through the website and other ways. And I know the building commissioner must be intimately involved in that, but are there a couple of examples you can say that we're looking at right now?
Well, I think I always like to start out with a big picture on something like that. And as you know, Sue, we've been advocating really an enhanced consolidation of the permitting functions by those departments that routinely issue permits, whether it's building or whether it's health, conservation commission, planning. And that starts with really physical location to accommodate our customers better. We are hoping, and we have the beginning stages of that have been approved, but more to be done, to consolidate those functions in the lower level of Town Hall, because that's our largest physical space in that building itself. And by moving some things around in the lower level, which we're in the beginning processes of doing, we can then locate, for instance, the planning function in that level, the zoning function into that level. And we have a conceptual template for doing that we talked about way back a couple of years ago with the Board of Selectmen. And we began to have a tentative architectural layout. We do have some fine-tuning things to complete. We have a Phase 2 ESCO project, which will move some of our HVAC equipment out of that lower level, and that will set the stage to reorient staff members. And it really enhances service to the public when we have these key staff permitting agencies working side by side, and that's the ultimate goal, so that we can have a single point of greeting when a customer arrives and needs a permit for whatever reason. It may be a major development, it may be minor, maybe remodeling, whatever. That's the only business we're in, is service, and we want our staff to be working side by side and ensuring that people are properly accommodated, questions are answered timely, and that there's no undue delays, and that physical proximity is the first critical step.
You've been pushing this idea of more communication, you know, really heavily with the Board of Selectmen, and we've appreciated that. It's kind of a little avant-garde, but it does remind me of something that happened 10 or 15 years ago with businesses, where they took down walls so that folks that were working, in computer companies, for example, on one cutting-edge idea, could actually see and speak with a coworker that might be dovetailing on that idea. So this, I can really picture the fact of, maybe a zoning administrator being right next to and being able to see across the room someone, in terms of permitting. We had the Conservation Commission give a presentation to the Board of Selectmen last evening, and they were talking about how their drive is really in customer service as well, in terms of finding the best way for a project to be completed to the vision of the homeowner, for example, that really meshes with the town's, mandate to protect its resources. So, to me, it seems like that's, the reorganization of Town Hall to be more efficient and to work more closely together really is going to be a time saver, and time savers are money savers. It also means you can get more projects done in the time that you have. So, going on, jumping off of that principle, where do you see, we're having, coming up on February 3rd, the listening session with selectmen, the visioning by the community in terms of let us know, what we're doing right. Let us know what we're doing wrong or, in your view, or whether you think you have a better mousetrap, a more efficient way to do it. Where should we be spending the taxpayers' money? Where, if you think we can be more efficient, where is that? And the selectmen are really looking forward to taking those ideas and really pushing them forward. So we'll start that on February 8th, but in terms of, managing, where do you see Falmouth going, the next 5 years? What are the biggest challenges, and where do you think we're already set up to do well?
Mm-hmm. That's a great segue for a great question, Sue. I think in terms of a 5-year time frame, the challenge, as I always see it as manager, is living within our means and balancing the demand for expanded services with our available revenues. And again, that ties into the property tax rate. It's something that we're very proud of because by having highly qualified professionals working in finance, whether it's Finance Director Jennifer Petit, all of our department heads that we work with, they bring a really high value in understanding how to manage effectively. And I think that's a key principle for us going forward, so that we live within our means and we build upon all of our strengths. And I think that two things that reoccur that I hear as town manager, and I know the Board of Selectmen as well, and you've really had established leadership in this area, is working on job creation and working on affordable housing. And they're really two key linchpins to strengthening and reinforcing all that's great in the Falmouth community. And that job creation aspect and the housing aspect are really hand in glove, and we want to work on those things in a measured and deliberative way that really achieves results. And we have a number of things that are in motion now that go, for instance, to property on Spring Bars Road that the town acquired several years ago that has yet to unfold. But we know that things like affordable housing take time and take attention to do correctly. And having a newly appointed housing coordinator, Carla Ferroni, now on our staff, will be a terrific addition to that. And the whole concept of job creation, as you know, Sue, we've been working with the Board of Selectmen on this community development concept, which is in part this bringing together of the permitting agencies, but also having strategic leadership to help us determine really what is in the best development interest of the Falmouth community. And I think you're starting to see that in terms of the way Main Street is beginning to transform with new developments, new buildings, commercial down, residential up, that is going to add to the livelihood and really the strength of our downtown area, which it's important, as you know, that we don't take that for granted. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention, Sue, talking about downtown, the importance of continuing to look for reasonable options to accommodate automobiles and parking, as well as pedestrians and bicycles. It's an important balance, and one that we need to continue to work on, and we certainly will. I am hopeful as town manager that we can identify some additional off-premise parking areas, not only for bicycles and pedestrians accommodations, but also for the automobiles that we know seasonally come into the town of Falmouth in overwhelming numbers as we burgeon from a community year-round of 31,000 to one well over 100,000 with the infrastructure of a community that's much smaller. So it presents major challenges, and we just want to keep working deliberatively on mechanisms to keeping improving the product and really setting the bar a little bit higher on the ladder and working as a team to get there. And that's a wonderful pleasure to be working with such a talented team to be able to accomplish those ends.
Well, it depends on good leadership. We have some challenges ahead of us where the Board of Selectmen will be dealing with and talking about further resolution to the turbines. I mean, this board has been very stalwart and very determined to take this, this issue and really resolve it in the most economic way possible, and that's going to be something that we're talking about. We have challenges. We've got a whole new water project coming about, probably in Great Harbor, as was discussed last night by the committee for water treatment. They, Eric Turkington, Virginia Valiella has done an incredible job, and they're going to take that good model and repeat it. We've got potential projects going forward with fire department. We've got potential projects, to discuss just in, the infrastructure with, on the roads as you've put forth. And so I think that this coming up, this February 3rd discussion is really going to be an opportunity to put those issues on the table and continue what you've been doing, and I think what you're the best at, which is prioritizing, and planning so that everything can get done in a sensible, efficient, and economical way. So I look forward to hearing more about that. I appreciate you coming today. We'll continue this conversation. And thanks to the folks at home. Please, mark your calendar, February 3rd. The selectmen are going to be, remind me, it's at the high school?
It's at the high school auditorium, correct.
High school auditorium. Linda Pogue is going to be the facilitator. Peter Johnson-Staub, the assistant town manager, has been working on this project as well, along with all the other selectmen. And we look forward to seeing you there. If you can't be there, please be sure to send an email about your thoughts and comments. Talk to your neighbors. We'll be having, I think, some kind of breakfast food and just a nice listening session on the part of selectmen. Thanks a lot, and look forward to next time.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.